Hey everyone, welcome to the long-awaited 70.3 preview for Oceanside for the men's race. I am so excited to showcase my new interface that I've been working on, that I've always wanted to create for triathlon previews, and I should be able to give you a much better visual perspective on how the swim, bike, and run is going to unfold, and then we'll end the video with my predictions. I've always wanted to create something like this because I was so jealous of other sports and soccer and basketball and whatnot, and how they have touchscreen interfaces and they can talk about their sports much clearer than we can in triathlon. I've always wanted to see something like this on the broadcast too for the commentary team, so I decided I'd create one myself. Give it a go. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Also argue with me on how you think the race is going to unfold. I love discussing it. If this video comes out and there's still time, make sure you head to the fantasy and make your picks on there and get the pro season leaderboard off to a good start, because we keep track of all the races throughout the year. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. Oceanside kicks off tomorrow, 6:40 a.m. local time. Cannot wait for this race. It always feels like it kicks off the Ironman races, but now that there's the Pro Series and every second and every point matters, it feels like there's this extra buzz around it this year, plus the huge start list. I think there's going to be 70 men would be my guess that actually start this race. I've had a few already message me, so yeah, it's going to be nuts. I think it might be the biggest men's field ever, and it's going to just change up the dynamics so much, I think. So let's dive in first to the swim and talk about the swim a little bit. The 15 athletes I've selected over here on the left are those who are just the top ranked, the top seeded athletes, plus a couple that I substituted out who I think will be impacting the race at some point on the swim, bike, or the run, and who I think you should be looking out for. So let's dive into the swim. I've got the course map here, and it's going to play a huge factor into this race because it looks like, from what I've heard, they've moved it from the beach start, which you'll be seeing here in just a second, now into the harbor, just about right here. And from what we've heard and what we've seen in the past, that really makes it harder for athletes to get away. It's a lot easier with a beach start and in the ocean swell for the good swimmers to get away and really show their swimming strengths, whereas in the harbor it tends to be bunched up, and with 70 men, like I said, it was already going to be bunched up. And it is a wetsuit swim as well, so another thing that favors the weaker swimmers, like the likes of Lionel Sanders, Sam Long. So I think the swim is just going to be very different to other 70.3 races, and that's going to determine, I think, a lot of this race. So let's dive into who I think, though, is going to be trying to get away and pushing the pace at the front of the race. Mark Dubrick, I think we all know, is going to be up there. Mark the Shark. He wanted a spot in T100 Miami. He didn't get it, but I think that might be good for him leading up into this race. He's going to have that extra little bit of training under his belt. He really broke through last year with wins at Escape from Alcatraz and Challenge Salinas. And yeah, I think he is just primed for definitely a top 5 result here. He's going to be pushing the pace at the front of the swim. But we've also got Braden Curry, who has had a string of unfortunate results recently. And, you know, he was 3rd place at the 2022 World Championships. He never likes a slow swim. And I think he knows what's coming from behind. I think he knows his run's a little bit weaker. So I think he's going to be actually the one at the front of this race from the get-go, pushing the pace. And I think him and Mark will work together. Florian Anger is another one who might be right there at the front, pushing the pace. He had a terrible year last year, so I think he is looking for redemption. He also knows what's coming from behind and don't think he can hang on in the run like Mark Dubrick. So Florian and Braden, I think, are really going to be the ones pushing the pace at the front. Matt Sharp, I don't know the last time he didn't swim in a front pack, so he'll be right up there. I don't think he'll be pushing the pace, but he'll be hanging on, and yeah, hoping that those guys in front of him will go for a breakaway. Then we've also got the likes of German athlete Maximilian Sperl. He's a fantastic swimmer, ranked 24th swimmer in the world on the PTO rankings, and yeah, I think he's a little bit of a dark horse. Could really perform well here in the swim. Justin Miralle is another new up-and-coming pro, fantastic swim biker. He'll be hanging on, hopefully, to the front of this group. I don't think anybody is going to get away. Leo Berger did last year, got himself a really good gap going out onto the bike. I don't see anyone in this group getting away like that. Helle Gaines is my dark horse for this race. You've heard me talk about him already in the first video I made about Oceanside. He's an Olympian for Belgium. He's already qualified for the Olympics. He's been focused on this race, and that's a scary prospect. He's raced 170.3 before. He finished in third place, even with a 5-minute drafting penalty. Obviously, coming from that short course background, he's a phenomenal swimmer. But I don't think he's quite on Leo Berger's level where he could get a breakaway. But I think he'll be happy to hold on here in the front group and see what he can do on the bike. I think he is definitely one to watch. And if he's out in this front group, that's not a good thing for those coming behind. But I'm actually super, super interested in two guys who aren't in the front pack who I think really could impact this race. And those two guys are Jackson Laundry and Patrick Lange. Patrick's never raced here at Oceanside before, so that'll be interesting to see how he does, how he handles it. He doesn't have a great swim, and he's actually quite far back, but other times he's right there in the front pack. I expect him to be right there next to Jackson Laundry in the chase pack. And I think it's going to be super interesting to see those two where they come out. Jackson won in 2022. If he's closer to this front pack, he would be loving that because there's lots of bike power in this front pack as well. The likes of Braden Curry, Florian Angert, Justin Miralle is a great biker. So if he's close to those guys and can get to the front much sooner than Sam Long and Lionel Sanders, I think he'll be so stoked with that. Patrick Lange, I don't see him having the bike power that Jackson Laundry has to get up to the front, so I think he'll be hoping he can make it into that front pack. If not, I think he might lose touch with Jackson, and we might see him quickly falling into the group with the upcoming bikers. But yeah, those two, keep an eye out for them. Where they finish in the swim could determine their race. Then further back, we're looking at the likes of Sam Long, Lionel Sanders, Joe Skipper, Chris Leiferman. Tomas Rodriguez is a decent swimmer, but he's really good on the run. But yeah, all these guys I think are going to be losing time in the swim, but they will be glad it's in the harbor. They'll be glad it's a wetsuit swim. And I think they'll be hoping for around 2 minutes down. If they're 2 minutes down, I think they're in with a shout to catch him on the bike. But again, we've heard a lot of talk about Race Ranger and the amount of men on this start list, and it could be really hard if they're more than that. If they're over 2.5 minutes back, it just gets harder and harder to make the amount of overtakes they need to get to the front of race. But we'll just have to wait and see. I think Lionel, judging by his time trial time, beating Sam Long in that time trial race, he looks to be in good swim form, although that doesn't always translate to open water at all. Lionel struggled in open water swims, as we all know, and swimming in general, so it'll be interesting to see if he comes out ahead of Sam Long. He'll be hoping for that. I think Sam will be right in and amongst the guys with Chris Leiferman, Joe Skipper, Matt Hansen. Joe has never won a 70.3 race before, so he'll be hoping to not be so far back on the swim. I don't know. I just don't have faith in Joe's swim, so I could see him even further back than Sam Long, but I think he'll be hoping to be there with Sam. Don't think he can go with him on the bike, actually, even though Joe's one of the best bikers. This is Joe's first race of the season. Sam Long, we saw his insane performance at Miami. I just don't think anybody's really going with him on the bike. Lionel, maybe. Jackson Laundry, maybe. Jackson's done it before. But I think they'll have to burn matches to stay with Sam Long. Then, further back, Matt Hansen sometimes has a great swim, and he could be swimming, quite farther up, much further ahead of Sam Long, Joe Skipper, but sometimes he does not have a great swim, but I see him swimming next to Chris Leiferman and Sam Long. We all know his run is coming later on, and then Tomas Rodriguez, I think, will be somewhere in and around Lionel and that pack as well. So that's my prediction so far for this swim. I think it is going to be fascinating to watch. And if anybody can get away, I think we're going to be looking at Braden Curry, Mark Dubrick, Matt Sharp, Helle Gaines. I think those, and Florian Angert. I think those are the guys to watch. So that'll let us jump into the bike now and see how this will unfold. I'll just fast forward to the bike course because it's a tough bike course. We've seen some 157s recently in the last couple of years, under sub-2 bike splits. We will not be seeing that at this race. It really kicks off after the 25-mile mark here on this bike course, where it starts to go into the mountains, into the military base. There's 3 punchy climbs, really steep climbs that could split up the race here. And yeah, I think that's when people are going to decide to make their moves. I think people will probably stay similar gaps for the first part of the bike ride, but then as it moves into those punchy climbs and towards the back half of the race, people are going to be making their moves. And that's what we saw last year, and we're going to see it again this year. So let's jump into how I think it's going to unfold. So we'll have those fast swimmers at the front of the bike at the beginning, the likes of Mark Dubrick, Braden Curry, Florian Anger, Matt Sharp, Helle Gaines, and Justin Miralle, as well as Maximilian Sperl. I think those guys are going to try and push the pace at the front of the bike to hold off those guys coming behind, but I think some are going to drop pretty quick because Braden Curry, phenomenal cyclist, Florian Anger as well, Justin Miralle knows he doesn't have the run. I think all three of those guys know they don't have the run to keep up with those coming behind, so they're going to go for broke on this bike course. And being a tough bike course, it really suits strong cyclists. Mark Dubrick hasn't done this course before, so I think he's going to try and hang on, but I don't think he'll be able to. I think he's going to fall back a little bit. Same with Matt Sharp, and same with Maximilian Sperl for sure. I actually think he'll lose time pretty quickly and fall off and lose quite a bit of time. So that's kind of what I'm thinking for those athletes. But Helle Gaines, he really is the dark horse. I mean, just having done 170.3 before, he did actually get a drafting penalty in that one. So it's going to be interesting to see what he is able to do. If he has been able to focus on this enough, ride his TT bike enough, he could stay with that front four and make it all the way to the run with a gap, which would be best case scenario for him and terrifying for everybody else. But I don't know. I don't see him coming from his ITU background being able to stay with those really strong bikers at the front of the race. And I could see him losing a bit of time on the bike. But I think he's going to want to make sure he's at least holding off those coming from behind because there is a lot of strong bikers coming. So, yeah, Helle Gaines, I could see him pretty much in the middle here, either in the front or slightly losing time and falling into a chase pack. But now, coming up next, Jackson Laundry, Patrick Lange, those guys who are in the chase pack in the swim. I can really see Jackson, if he's only down a minute and a half from the front, I can see him motoring to the front of the bike, front of the race. I think his bike's so underrated. We've seen him just outsplit a lot of fantastic bikers in the last couple of years, and he's gone with Sam Long in a lot of races. So I have faith that Jackson Laundry can actually make it to the front of this race. If not, he'll definitely be right in around that chase bike group, which I don't think he's going to want to bring the likes of Mark Dubrick, Matt Sharp with him, especially Mark. He's a phenomenal runner. So Jackson, even though they are teammates on the Real Tri Squad, I think he's going to try and drop the likes of Mark and get to the front of the race. Now, Patrick Lange, he hasn't really proved to be a strong cyclist in the past. He's a good cyclist for sure, and I think this course does suit him with those hills. The power to weight ratio does make a significant impact. However, I don't see him going with the likes of Jackson Laundry. I think he'd be happy to stay with the likes of Mark Dubrick, Matt Sharp in a chase group there behind the front pack. Then we've got the group coming from behind, and we've got to talk about Sam Long first because I think he is just going to be motoring. I think we are all curious to see how the large field is going to impact him, though. Is he going to be able to overtake a lot of people? We saw him get that penalty at the 70.3 World Champs in St. George, where he was overtaking a large group of athletes and eventually had to slot in, and they gave him a penalty for it, and he had to overtake Jackson at the same time while he was overtaking everybody. It was a bit messy. So that could really impede him, or, he could just get on a fantastic train and just move past everyone right away, right out of the swim, and get into some open air and just start catching this front group and this chase group. Could easily see him getting to the front of the race again like he did last year, although he did blow up, remember, last year on the run. So he's now got a lot of experience. He's got experience from last year's Oceanside race, that 70.3 race where he had to overtake a lot of people. So I've got faith in him to get to the front of the race. And I think we'll see him and the bike really close, if not there. But then we've got Lionel Sanders. We know he's going to be chasing. In recent times, he was always on the same level as Sam on the bike. So it'll be really interesting to see if he can go with Sam. But Sam seems to have just been a little bit better on the bike recently. And obviously that performance in Miami showed he is incredible right now. But Lionel, first race of the season. I actually don't think he's chasing the Pro Series, just the way the season will work out for him. I don't think he'll be able to do 3 Ironmans and really chase those points. So I think he's just all in on having some great races for him. So much to rely on for his swim. If he gets a bit of a gap on Sam, can hold him off for a while, then I could see him going with Sam towards the front of the race. That would be best case scenario for Lionel, who's won here 2 times, I believe, before. So, yeah, I think Lionel is definitely one to watch and definitely capable to get to the front of the race. I see him coming off the bike, though, 1 or 2 minutes behind. So I'm going to put him in this chase pack here. And you know, I still see him outrunning the likes of Patrick Lange in this race. Patrick's just never been able to show his marathon speed over the 70.3 distance. But then we've also got Joe Skipper coming from behind, Chris Leiferman as well. I don't see Matt Hansen or Tomas Rodriguez gaining any time on the bike, and both those guys will just have to save it for the run, I think. But Joe Skipper, I think he could go with Lionel on the bike. It's hard to say. I think Sam and Lionel might be just a notch above him on the bike, but we did see recently in a video he put out, he just did a duathlon to break out the rust. And we know he's focused on this Pro Series. We know he knows every second counts. So it's going to be interesting to see where he comes out the water and whether he's able to go with Sam and Lionel or if he's further back. Chris Leiferman, man, he got 4th place at 2022 70.3 World Champs. Remember that. So he's definitely one to watch. And yeah, I think he could surprise a lot of people here. Definitely top 10, I would say, for Chris Leiferman, who has came 4th year before, I believe, and got 2nd place to Lionel at 70.3 Boulder last year. He's been overcoming a lot of health issues, and I believe he's all in the clear. And yeah, I think he's going to be a good one to watch. But then moving on to the run, let's go back to the course here, and I'll fast forward onto this run course, which is a 2-lap run course. It's really, really flat. There's only like 280 feet of elevation gain, and it's got a few punchy, really short climbs on it, which I'm sure you've seen before. And yeah, but it's just got so much energy, so much spectators. It's perfect weather and temperature, mid-50s. And I should have mentioned that before, earlier in the breakdown here, that is going to make a big difference for this race. It's only predicted to be 44 degrees in the morning. It's super cold. And then that means on the bike, these athletes are going to be freezing. So yeah, we've seen that affect races before. Also means I heard Ari Cloud talking about this, where, you know, the air is more dense, the bike times are less fast when it's cold, and it favors stronger cyclists. So keep that in mind. The temperature is going to be really good, really bad on the bike for some people, and also really good on the run for other strong runners. So this is where I think the race is really going to unfold. I think we're going to have a group coming out onto the run together, and you know what? I'm going to have to start with Helle Gaines, because if he's there, I think he's got the fastest run split of the day. Be interesting to see if he's, like I said, up there with the likes of Jason West's split from last year. But I think if he's up there, he's going to take the win. So yeah, I think he's the one to watch the most on the run. We all know Matt Hansen's going to be chasing, coming on the run. Might have one of the fastest splits of the day. I could see, Braden Curry, who's going to be there at the front of the bike in the swim. I could see him just losing time. Same with Florian Angert, Maximilian Sperl. Matt Sharp's never produced one of those top run splits before, so I could see him losing time. Likes of Chris Leiferman, Justin Miralle, those guys don't quite have the strong run splits. But now this is where it really gets interesting, because I think Mark Dubrick got such an underrated run, and he could have the first or second fastest run split here, no doubt. He ran in college. Most people think he was a swimmer, but he's actually ran in college, and ITU athlete for a while. So keep an eye out on Mark. If he comes off the bike in for the front group for some reason, he could be in for a shout for the win here. So yeah, Mark is definitely one to watch on the run. We've got Jackson Laundrie, phenomenal runner. We saw him win it in 2022 on the run, and nobody would have predicted that. I still think I would pick Helle Gaines, Mark Dubrick to outrun him. Actually, the same with Sam Long after that Miami performance. I would say Sam could be right there with Mark Dubrick as well. Those two had a close finish at Indian Wells this year where Mark just out-sprinted him there at the end. Now, Lionel's the question mark. He hasn't been running in carbons. Maybe the carbons will give him an extra kick. Lionel's always ran well here before. I think he could be right in and around the pace of Sam Long and Mark, maybe just a little bit slower. So Lionel's going to have to produce a pretty big bike to come off the front, and that might hurt him. But yeah, he's all the experience from racing here before. So yeah, it could be, this right now is kind of my run battle for the win. And yeah, that's what I'm super excited to see. Patrick Lange, if he finally gets it to click, he could be the fastest runner there with Hella Gaines, or he could be running, right there just behind like he always seems to do, and find himself outside of the top 5. That's kind of where I'm predicting him again. He has had a lot of time to focus on this one. It seems like a good timing for him to do a 70.3, whereas he's just tried to fit them in before. So he could have focused on speed specifically for this one and has enough time to build back up for Ironman Texas and get more mileage in the legs. We'll have to see. He is definitely such a huge question mark for this race. Joe Skipper then, we know he's a fantastic runner as well. But yeah, I just don't see him running as fast, maybe as fast as Jackson Laundry. But it really depends if he's going to even be there at the beginning of the run to make a dent. I don't think so. Tomas Rodriguez definitely will be catching up and could sneak a top 10 position here. Actually, I'm going to move Chris Leiferman up a little bit more because I think he is, like I said, underrated. And on the bike and the run, that's his specialty. He ran a 2:49 at Coeur d'Alene last year. So, yeah, his run's definitely going to be there. But, yeah, that's how I think the run is going to be unfolding. I think, yeah, that leads perfectly into my predictions. So, I think if Hella Gaines is anywhere near the front within 2 minutes, he's going to be our winner. He's going to be like Leo Boucher, the short course athlete who shows, you know what? We can do this long distance stuff. He's going to blow some people's minds with how he's focused on this race. And yeah, it could be a sign of him moving up after the Olympics to the middle distance. Then I've got in second place, I think Sam Long is going to make it to the front of the race, but not be able to hang with Hella Gaines on the run. And I think he'll be gutted with that. I think he's coming here for the win. A lot of people have him picked for the win. But I think he's going to have to get a gap on the likes of Hella Gaines and Mark Dubrick in order to pull off the win. So that's why I've got him in second. In third place, who've I got? Man, I want to change my mind so many times as I'm doing this. I'm going to go with... Man, I wanted to pick Lionel there. I grabbed Lionel, but I'm going to Lionel Sanders in fourth place because I think Jackson just is in a really good shape right now. He also missed out on Miami and has been focused in on this race. He said he wants points and PTO points to get into that T100 series, so he's highly motivated and yeah, just really lacks no weakness, got the experience. Lionel, I just feel like he needs a little bit more time on this season. That's why I put him in fourth. In fifth place, then, I'm going Mark Dubrick. I think he's going to fall back on the bike quite a bit by the end of the bike ride, and I think it's going to be his run that gets him back into fifth place. So I think he's just going to be just too far off on the bike ride, but I think a fifth place he'd be pretty happy with, and that'll get him some good recognition and some good points as well for the PTO T100 series. In sixth place, then, I've got Patrick Lange. I think... that's the best he could probably do in a 70.3 distance. He hasn't shown us any reason otherwise. However, I still think he could be a dark horse and finish second, third if everything clicks and we finally get to see what he does over the Ironman distance at the 70.3 distance. And then seventh place, I've got Joe Skipper. I think that's about as good as Joe could do. Very similar to Patrick where... we just haven't seen it before. Never won a 70.3. I know him and Jackson have quite a big rivalry right now. Joe Skipper reckons he can beat Jackson in this race, however. And a lot of people, when I put a poll up to see who would win, a lot of people picked Joe to win over Jackson. I just don't see it with Jackson having the experience of winning here before, having a better swim, having just as good a bike run as Joe. I don't see a way in where Joe will beat Jackson at this race. But that's what I've come up with. Those are my picks. Those are my decisions I've had to really, really struggle with making. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this style of video. Hopefully it worked. I had to do quite a few practice runs to see how it would actually work in real life. So that's why I'm putting it out so late. And yeah, let me know if you like it. But Also, don't forget to put your predictions down below and tell me if I got anything wrong. But thanks so much for watching. I don't think I'll have time to do a women's race, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm going to be watching eagerly tomorrow. Send me messages. I might do a live watch along if I've got time. So keep an eye out for that on YouTube. And we'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.